From this prototype of Brian from 1995...
On two legs.
Yeah, isn't that cute? I could wade my feet.
To the theory that Brian was once a human who's had his brain transferred into a dog...
And this is our human, Brian.
Nice to meet you.
Don't you worry, because there's more where that came from. That's why today I'll be doing a deep dive through 7 different levels of those facts, secrets, and theories, all the way from stuff that's pretty surface level to finding the deepest skeletons in Brian Griffin's closet. Starting with the tip of the iceberg and Brian's alcoholism. I know it's a pretty low-hanging fruit right off the bat, but through the years, Brian has gone from a guy who enjoyed the occasional tipple to someone who'd think nothing of getting wasted every night of the week.
Have you forgotten my name?
I don't know. I spent the whole afternoon drinking ethanol out of a ladle.
Drinking ethanol out of a ladle has to be the most degenerate thing I've ever heard of, but in fairness to Brian, he is an addict, and we saw that in the episode Not All Dogs Go to Heaven when he had to go without booze.
Hold it together, Brian.
Come on, you know you want...
Yeah, come on, Brian.
Come on! What are you waiting for?
Yeah, you big...
His drinking gets so out of hand that his liver actually starts to shut down.
Is everyone warm in here?
Brian, are you feeling all right? Oh my God!
They take him to the vet, and the vet gives Brian a choice. He either gives up booze, or he takes some meds, and obviously Brian picks the meds. But they gotta be given the butt way, and let's just say, dude ain't a fan.
Get over here, you idiot! Peter, what the hell? I'm still your benefit, so just go limp and take it. Ah!
Biting your best friend who's only trying to help you is wild, especially when you realize Brian's liver would just collapse without those meds. I know everyone knows Brian's got a taste for the sauce, but we're only at the very tip of the iceberg, so things should slowly get more obscure as we go. Along with the alcohol, there's another constant by Brian's side, and that's Stewie.
Living the time of our life.
Pair of partners just like Thelma, 6 feet tall.
Yes, and your breasts don't roll to Rhode Island.
Going in style.
Their friendship hasn't always been the easiest, though, like the time Stewie let Brian borrow some money, and Brian wasn't the quickest to pay the little guy back.
Oh, that's funny. I could have sworn I said...
Yeah, I don't have it, sorry.
That's good, OJ. Yeah, it feels so good, does it? No, huh? Yeah, that's what happens, man.
But usually, in later seasons especially, the two are pretty close. This led some fans to come up with a theory that only Brian can really understand what Stewie's saying. After all, he's a baby, and a lot of characters don't seem to react when he says stuff like this.
You now open up for the airplane.
Damn the broccoli, damn you, and damn the Wright brothers.
So it makes a bit of sense why this theory came around, but as I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, actually Brian isn't the only character on the show that can understand Stewie, like Peter, for example.
I want to turn on the swing set.
Get lost.
But you've gone for 2 turns. It looks like fun, and I want to...
I'm gonna do a big jump off. Ah! Get Mom! Mom!
And then you got the time he chipped in about The Godfather, and the family had no trouble understanding him there.
You know, I can't even get through. I can't even finish the movie in the ending.
You've never seen the ending? Well, how can you say you don't like it if you haven't even given it a chance?
I have tried on 3 separate occasions.
Then, if stuff like that wasn't good enough of an answer, Seth MacFarlane said himself in an interview that they can hear him and understand him, it's just that he's a baby, and for that reason, they just don't take what he says with any seriousness. So while it's a pretty neat theory, which would explain their close bond, unfortunately, it's just not true. That's the obvious stuff out of the way, though. Now we can go a little deeper and look at the stuff that's still pretty surface level to most fans, but might be news to a casual. One of the more interesting plot points in later seasons that revolves around Brian is the fact that, well, Quagmire can't stand the guy. Comes out of nowhere, really. But in Jerome is the New Black, Brian finds out that Quagmire doesn't like him, so he tries pulling out all the stops to get him back on his side. Well, back like he was in the first place. But problem is, that only makes things worse, and Quagmire doesn't hold back.
The man pays for your food and rescued you from certain death, and this is how you repay him? You constantly hit on your best friend's wife.
Okay, he's got a point there. Brian does do that, but come on, Quagmire, you slept with your best buddy's wife.
When all you do is date bimbos. Yeah, and what really bothers me is you pretend you're this deep guy who loves women for their souls. I don't buy them a copy of Catcher in the Rye and then lecture them with some about Holden Caulfield or some profound intellectual. I date women for their bodies, but at least I'm honest about it.
When he puts it like that, it's kind of hard to argue. And he's still not done.
All of it? If you weren't such a bore. You're just a big, sad, alcoholic bore.
So why does Quagmire really hate him so much? Is it because of the stuff he said here? Maybe. That's at least part of it. But I think this whole Quagmire hating Brian thing first started way back in season 4 when they both went on a reality TV show called The Bachelorette.
Hey guys. Well, it's been great to meet you all, and I'm looking forward to getting to know you while we're here.
Dude, put your pants on.
So along with everyone else, Brian and Quagmire go head to head to see if they can snag Brooke, and Brian looks like he's the front runner.
God, I actually have quite a jazz collection myself. What do you like?
Oh, DJ Jazzy Jeff. I'm kidding.
Oh, you got me. Oh.
It's not hard to take the lead when the guy you're running against does this to his dates, though.
Hey, Brooke, what do you say we get you some more champagne? All right.
So when it comes to crunch time, who is Brooke gonna pick?
I didn't want to believe it, but it's true. What happened to my baby?
Who sold you the drugs? I can't believe.
Beating Quagmire to the girl surely is going to rub him the wrong way. Glenn really isn't used to being outgunned when he goes all out for a woman. So right here, I think the hatred started to fester. But Quagmire can't have many complaints. It's his mom who cost him a chance with Brooke.
Mittens has food in his bowl.
That's old food.
Mittens, shut up.
Do you judge the Mittens that way?
Mom, you want this three-way to happen, you're gonna have to change your tone.
This isn't the first time they've both tried to go for the same woman. The only problem is that woman is also married to their best friend. Yeah, I'm talking about Lois. Both of them are in love with her. Brian tells her to her face, albeit in a super creepy way.
I know you're married to Peter, but I love you and I can't stand it.
No, this is a good sweater.
Glenn tells Ida after they spend some time with Lois and Peter.
No, I don't want a woman like Lois. She's perfect. I've never been so in love with anyone.
Glenn, you're talking about your best friend's wife.
You can't deny that the whole Lois thing just adds fuel to the fire in terms of the rivalry, but it's also pretty rich coming from Quagmire, who used the whole Lois thing as a stick to beat Brian with earlier. Then there's the whole idea that Quagmire hates Brian as a way of hating on himself, like some sort of weird self-abuse thing. Think about it, Brian represents the worst parts of Quagmire. He's sleazy, desperate, using as a way to fill a void in his life. You get the idea. I don't think it's true personally. I think Quagmire's just upfront with the way he feels, because sometimes it just is that simple. But I also think the real reason Quagmire hates Brian is because of The Bachelorette. That was the episode they stopped really being friends. Something that's not simple is that the show's creator, Seth MacFarlane, might be Brian Griffin. I know what you're thinking. Nice one, genius. But I'm not just talking about Seth's voice being the voice of Brian. I'm talking about Seth using the character of Brian as a vehicle for his own personality, especially in the beginning. Think about it. Back then, Brian was a wisecracking, kind soul who would do anything for his family.
Lois has her knitting, Chris has his video games, Meg's learning how to drive, and me, I like the sauce.
See, he was always given good, well-meaning life advice, but as time ticked on, Brian started to change, and that charm and heart started to leave him, and was instead replaced with the guy who doesn't have any idea what he's fracking talking about, even if he tries to sound like he does.
Could happen, right? The year.
Are you saying the year 1984 could happen?
Very similar words.
All that pseudo-intellectualness aside, the big thing about Brian's character changing was how vocal he became politically. Yeah, even if he was just saying it to bet a woman or to look good.
I think this activism is great, Peter, as long as the message is out there.
Wow, you are furious.
Not at all.
There's 1,001 examples of Brian cutting loose some groan-worthy take or virtue signal here and there, and many have theorized that it's Seth using Brian as his political puppet, mainly due to the fact that Seth is a huge Democrat. He's donated to Democrat elections, he's campaigned, heck, he's even gone on college campuses and talked directly to students.
Camp tends to believe, from my perspective, that voters lack intelligence, and this is obvious in the way that they try to persuade us not with facts, not with solutions or hard judgment, but with little tricks like the folksy persona that they've coached Palin.
If you closed your eyes, you'd think it was Brian who was delivering that speech. Well, I guess the most puzzling part of this theory is, if Seth wanted to use Brian to make a point, why'd he suddenly become a bad character? Well, I think Seth started with the idea to use Brian as a mouthpiece, but realized how tone-deaf it would come across and maybe even alienate viewers. So he pushed Brian in the other direction to the point of parody.
Here comes an overweight cat with dollar signs for eyes and a hat that says alternative minimum tax over a sad Statue of Liberty.
Oh, that ought to wake people up.
So Seth is basically saying, hey guys, I know what you're thinking, I'm a preachy liberal, but I can't be that if Brian is. I'll let you guys decide on that one, but there's a better theory around Seth and Brian, but I'm saving that one for a little later. For now though, we're about to start getting into the stuff that's a little more outside the box as we move into the shallow depths. When you think about Spooner Street, and more specifically the Griffin's house, it's not hard to picture Brian being part of that, but did you know he's actually moved out of the house 6 times? First time was when he tried to make it in Hollywood, so he left Quahog to live with his cousin Jasper.
Yeah, this is a message for Brian. This is Jack Nicholson.
Oh, Jack Nicholson! Maybe this is the break Brian needs to get into the industry.
Listen, I'm just jacking you, man. Me and my buddy Phil just found your script. Yeah, it sucks. And don't put your number on the cover,
Aw, man. That's kind of sad. To make it worse, the family comes to visit him thinking he's some hotshot, but he's not. But hey, this is early Brian, so at least he admits it.
I thought I needed to get away from you guys. The only thing I'm missing is my family.
Then you got the time he moves in with Jillian and brings Stewie to stay with him.
He just gets really lonely without me at home.
Brian, there's no more graham crackers.
Well, he's not doing it out of the kindness of his own heart. It's because Stewie's paying Brian's half of the rent.
I'm paying Mr. Lickety-Self's half of the rent.
All right, yes,
Is that true?
it's true.
Why didn't you say anything?
Because you wanted me to move in so badly and...
But like all good things in Brian's life, he fumbles the ball and ruins it. Then you got the time he left home because he was sick of Peter treating him like a dog.
Eat your cinnamon bun and stop being a bad dog.
How dare you?
How dare I? Hey, you're not going anywhere without your leash.
I don't need your damn leash, and I don't need you.
While Brian roams the streets, he starts to live life like when he was a stray. And if you're a stray, that usually means one thing. You're in danger of being taken to the pound.
All right, who wants to be next? You? You?
Brian! I'm here to bring you...
Home. After attacking the stranger and being sent to the pound, Brian's facing a trial that could potentially end his life. The judges don't buy his wise guy routine, and it's up to Peter to convince them that he's actually a good dog.
Sometimes we all need a second chance. We all need to forgive.
I stole $10 from Meg's room.
Then there's also the time he moves out after the Griffins replace him with a younger dog.
You know, besides, there's a whole big world out there, and it's time I saw it.
This is your home. Brian, you live here.
But I've thought about this long and hard, and...
Long and hard.
He ends up moving back in, though, after Stewie literally kills new Brian for humping Rupert.
Oftentimes, it's the ones who seem the happiest.
At least we have our old Brian back.
Another time Brian had to move out was after the whole racist tweet thing in season 16. After the whole town turns on him, he has no choice but to move out. It's a bit of a rough time for Brian, and he actually doesn't come home for a couple of episodes. But after exposing Principal Shepard as a food thief, Brian goes from zero to hero.
Trisha, where's the big nail clipper?
And then finally, Brian also moved out after he meets and marries Jess, a woman who's not long been diagnosed with terminal cancer.
If you spent the rest of your life...
Oh, Brian.
...as my bride...
Yes!
But as soon as they get hitched, Jess gets some great news. Her cancer's clear, and she can now spend the rest of her long life with Brian.
Meaning Jess is going to live.
Problem with that is, Brian didn't actually want to get married. He did it to give the girl a happy send-off, and, well, to look good. The marriage is a disaster for him, too. Jess starts putting on weight, Brian resents her to the point he literally lets her die.
Wait, are you... Oh my god, she's... Someone... How do you do the Heimlich maneuver? Damn it, I've got one song by Heim on my phone and...
He has no other choice than to move back in with the Griffins, so you get the idea. Every time he moves out, something crazy happens, or he makes a mistake, or something. Brian seems to be one of those guys where there's always something happening. His car's broke, he's out of cash, he left his card in his other wallet. Each time he falls apart, he relies on the Griffins to sort him out. Like, even when he moved in with Jillian, he couldn't have done that without Stewie. Maybe Quagmire was right. Perhaps Brian is just a freeloader who sponges off people who have had the misfortune to care for him. It's not a good time to be Brian Griffin right about now. I just bashed him for how he treats his foster family. Well, now it's time to talk about the way he deals with his own flesh and blood. Because if you didn't know, Brian has a son. Although you wouldn't know it if you saw him, but I'll get to that in a sec. Brian finds out about him in the episode The Former Life of Brian when he pays Tracy, his old girlfriend, a visit. Let's just say she doesn't look like he remembered.
Tracy Flanagan?
Oh my god, Brian Griffin, is that you?
As he's about to speed out of there, Tracy hits him with the bombshell about his son.
Oh, no way! Jerry!
Now, hold on a sec. He's a human? I don't know why, but I was picturing like a puppy or something. That's wild. Like, you'd expect maybe Dylan walks on all fours or has a real craving for kibble or something, but now he's just a regular kid. Anyway, Brian takes custody of his son and brings Dylan back to the house where he can meet his extended family, although a lifetime without a father figure means Dylan isn't the most well-behaving kid in the world.
You are the bastard.
After a rocky start, Brian and Dylan have a breakthrough. Dylan comes out of that I hate everything phase and starts turning into quite the nice young man.
Alright, you ready for school?
Yeah.
Oh, this kid, he's only 13. Oh, we got a young Adam Sandler here, I think.
After a bit of time away from his mom, Tracy calls to take Dylan back, and while it might seem sentimental, Brian doesn't really stop Dylan from leaving.
I'm gonna miss that boy.
You know, I just finally figured it out. She looks like a really hot Tim Russert.
Although Brian said his goodbyes, he didn't have to never see his son again. Well, that's what he was planning on doing. Because after this nice ending, Brian never bothers with Dylan and completely abandons him. Until he sees that his son is in a pretty big show on Disney. Then of course he tries hitting him up again.
Local teen and Irish trash, Dylan Flanagan.
Brian, did you hear that? Brian?
So, yeah, that's who Brian really is. Hungry for fame, zero shame, 100% lame. A little bit like my rhyming skills. And maybe if Dylan suddenly runs for office or something, Brian might tag him in a #ProudDad Facebook post. We've spilled some of Brian's best kept secrets, but now I think it's time to get a little weirder as we enter deeper waters. This next theory is one of my personal favorites, mainly because of how ludicrous it sounds, but hear me out. What if Brian's ex, Jillian, is part dog? Stay with me, I know it's crazy, but I got a few pieces of evidence to back things up here. Firstly, the idea that there's talking dogs in any universe is crazy, but what if it was on a sliding scale? It would explain why Brian is so in love with her. Like, let's be real, he's had more of a connection with Jillian than he has any of his other flings. It would also explain, why she's dumb.
Oh my God, Brian! I was watching something on TV about this guy named Hitler. Somebody should stop him.
I'm not saying all dogs are dumb or anything like that, but they have subhuman intelligence, so it would explain a few things. Or maybe it's the human side of Jillian that makes her dumb. Then you've got her name, Jillian Russell Wilcox. A Jack Russell is a type of dog. Her name is part dog. Maybe she's part dog. But my favorite thing about this theory is the fact that it all hinges around Jillian's necklace. Let's just take a sec to look at Brian's collar. Have you got a mental note of what it looks like? Right, well, here's Jillian's necklace. Suspiciously similar, don't you think? If you want to be a killjoy, there's probably nothing in this one, but I see it as some good fun. It's made me look at Jillian in a whole new light. Speaking of talking dogs, though, Brian and Jasper are at the center of our next theory, and it's another fun one. All the best theories are fun theories. You guys remember Jasper, right?
Hey, Jasper.
How was your flight?
Oh, torture. 5 hours on my moneymakers. Here I am in a committed relationship, and all I can think about is having a piece of Navy cake.
Yeah, so he's Brian's cousin, but some people have theorized that out of their entire family, only 2 of them share the gene that causes their human qualities. It's most likely a recessive gene, seeing as Brian's mom and siblings don't do any of the human things.
Excedrin headache number 1. Oh, damn. Hey, does anyone here have thumbs?
Another thing that makes this more likely than not is the fact that there are other dogs that have a similar gene to Brian and Jasper. There's new Brian.
Whose leg do you have to hump to get a hug around here?
Oh, I like it.
Then there is Vinnie.
I hear you're looking for a dog or something.
Hi, I'm Peter.
Vinnie.
Finally, someone who sounds like they went to college.
And you can't forget Ellie.
Hey, who's your favorite artist?
I really like that Jackson Pollock. Grab the paint with his hands and just start chucking it everywhere. I mean...
It's pronounced Pollock.
Truth is, I haven't felt this way with anyone in a long time. I mean, I bet every time you go snarfling on it, you have to stop it.
Come on now, Brian. A lady has to have a few secrets.
So this sort of gene isn't super common, but it's certainly not rare. Something must make Brian and the gang different from the other dogs. Either that, or all the talking dogs in Quahog are secretly related. I don't know if it's that deep in all honesty, but where we're headed is pretty dark, so I'd hang on to the fun stuff while you can. Because things are about to get a lot more interesting as we dive into the deep. I wonder what weird stuff is lurking down here. Well, if you're looking for weird, then boy do I got a theory for you. Have you ever thought how strange it is that Peter's a pretty dumb guy? That's putting it lightly, I know.
See, Quagmire? Now this is a gun without a safety.
All the while, Brian seems to be the brainiest of the bunch. Well, early season Brian anyway.
The hell it is. Pure Bogota bullion.
But these are just kids.
Oh, yeah? Filthy drug-peddling midgets.
Oh, my.
Well, what if I told you that Peter has Brian's body and Brian has Peter's body? I know that sounds nuts, but just let the sink in. What I'm saying is Peter and Brian have each other's brains. I mean, Brian does act more human than most people, especially Peter, who we often see acting like a wild animal, like the time Lois literally puts him in a doghouse.
Go to your Peter house.
But it's a bit more than that. Like, don't you think it's a little strange that Brian has a better relationship with Stewie than his own father?
Oh, bad. Well, did I say fun on the road to Rhode Island?
Or the fact that Brian is literally in love with Lois?
Say we were both drunk and we knew we wouldn't remember.
I'd have to be really.
Like, it makes sense that Brian was the guy really destined for Lois, especially as Peter usually treats her like trash.
You want some beans with that, right?
Ow! Damn it! Peter, what's wrong with you?
Wait, Lois, don't move. Stewie's loving this.
But how could Peter and Brian have their brains mixed up? Well, what if it was all thanks to Stewie? He's known for tinkering in the lives of his family members. Heck, he's even done brain swapping to the family before.
My hand. I mean, your hand. It's mine. Yes! Stewie, I think it worked. We did it. We switched bodies.
And if we go back to the stuff I spoke about with Jillian, maybe she's collateral from Stewie's experiments. Peter and her are both pretty dense, so the idea that they could both be dogs that have been brain switched isn't that far-fetched. Remember a little while ago, I talked you guys through the theory that Brian is basically Seth MacFarlane's cartoon mouthpiece, that he's the character that Seth sees himself in most? Well, it's a nice theory and all, but I did say there was a much more weird spin on the whole Seth-Brian dynamic. And it's the theory that the writers of the show are using Brian to make fun of Seth. After all, he stopped actively writing for the show in around 2009, so the character of Brian has been given to someone else to write, which may account for his drastic dip in character.
Hey, you know how Snapchat puts a fake dog tongue on you? How'd you like a real one?
Would it make you feel better if I told you those girls were 15? It shouldn't. Moving on, there are some other strings to this theory. I mean, Brian's a pretty well-known failed writer, right?
You might actually, you might like this. You should look at it.
All right, damn it!
Well, what if the writers were using Brian's writing woes as an allegory for Seth MacFarlane? Now, don't get me wrong, Seth is a super accomplished writer, but there was a time, right around the mid-2000s, early 2010s, where he wanted to be known for something other than Family Guy. He released his own Swing album, for example, pushed his film A Million Ways to Die in the West to the moon in hopes he'd stop being known just for being the cartoon guy. None of those things didn't do badly, but I'd say he failed as far as erasing that immediate connection between him and the show. He's still very much the Family Guy guy. Then you got Brian and the booze. That's something we've touched on a fair amount already. We know Brian's an alcoholic, and as we saw, his drinking has gotten more out of hand as the years have gone on, and we know Brian uses it as a coping mechanism as well. Guess what? So does Seth. In an interview, he's admitted that he turns to alcohol as a way to combat his stage fright when singing or performing, and we actually see Brian do the same when Brian sings and swings. It's such a specific thing that I doubt it's just a coincidence, especially considering how I've already mentioned how close Brian is to Seth, although I don't think Seth went this overboard. Apart from the Dutch courage, Seth's also pretty famous for being single, or rather being a bachelor. He's had 12 relationships since the year 2000, and all of them haven't managed to last longer than 2 years, which is something you can certainly see in Brian's character. Like, just look at how many exes he has.
You're an old bag. You don't even know why you're here. Your vomit tastes weird. You chose to be on the hills, and you can never get wet.
Jeez, Brian, that's no way to talk to women. But hey, maybe they took his constructive criticism on board. Or not. Then you've got the insufferable liberal character arc that Brian went on, which, like a lot of his character traits, really got going when Seth left, to the point they even started being meta about it.
Hi, Brian Griffin. They let me write some of the liberal jokes. How you liking them?
I'd like to think this theory is true, especially because it'll most likely be some good old-fashioned fun. Seth built a career off the back of tearing down and parodying people, so it's only fitting that the writers take over the mantle and subtly do it about him, too. Time to move on down to the ocean floor now as we talk about some of the stranger secrets surrounding Brian. Along with being an insufferable sleazebag, one of Brian's biggest personality traits is that he's a big-time atheist.
Don't believe in God.
Brian, how can you say that?
I mean, I'd never go to church. You know how I feel about that.
But what if it was all a ploy? What if Brian was a god himself? But before we get into the hows and whys, this is a clip from the episode Stewie Loves Lois that got fans theorizing like crazy.
God, I've looked forward to this moment.
Okay, everybody, I know you were expecting something else. People were a lot shorter 2,000 years ago. So let's try to be adult about this. No snickering, and hey!
Notice how small Jesus is here, and how his voice kind of sounds like Brian's. Well, a lot of people, joke or not, think this is evidence towards Brian being the second coming of Christ. Now, personally, I think that's one heck of a reach, but I think you could argue that Brian is a god. I mean, think of all the danger this guy's put himself in, like the time he smashed headfirst into a solid fire hydrant. That'd be enough to kill anyone, but somehow Brian survives. I think if we're being serious, though, this is more of a meme entry into the Iceberg, but hey, it's on there, so I gotta cover it. So we know that Brian has a thing for writing, even if in-universe he sucks at it.
Sold a single copy thanks to universal panning by literary critics. Coming up, children are getting sexier, and that's
This is so humiliating, and I have nothing to show for it.
But my dear viewer, what if he didn't suck at it? And it was all some sort of meta joke from him as the writer of the show. We've already seen this clip once, but let's look at it again in a different light, that Brian Griffin is a meta writer of Family Guy. Sorry, the meta writer of Family Guy.
Hi, Brian Griffin. They let me write some of the liberal jokes. How you liking them?
There's a few more clues hidden around too, like this one from the episode Peter Problems.
I'm a writer, Peter. I'm working right now. This is the raw material of a picture of life.
Yesterday, it took you 30 minutes to lap up a cold. That's my process.
Working right now, are we, Brian? I wonder what that could mean. Maybe that he's writing an episode of the show as he speaks, or he's at least banking what Peter and Lois are saying for a rainy day. Also, the fact that the writer of the real show, Seth MacFarlane, uses his own talking voice for Brian could be another nod. Then there's the fact that the show has even had entire episodes dedicated to a show within a show idea.
Being on the show reminds me of one of my favorite quotes.
What's the quote?
Objection, Your Honor. I didn't realize this was a trial.
So it's not like this sort of meta idea could be that far from something the guys over at Family Guy could pull. I fully expect the ending of Family Guy to cut to Brian as he types the end on a blank document, or maybe I'm wrong, maybe it'll be some Fox execs, or maybe even a tank of manatees. Who am I kidding? This show is never going to end. I know we've already touched on the idea that Brian puts himself in dangerous situations a lot and somehow survives, but there was a time when he was sent to the big pound of the sky, and that's courtesy of a hit and run in the episode The Life of Brian.
Brian, look out!
It's not all bad. Stewie manages to bring his best buddy back by taking his return pad off of a past version of himself and going back in time to save Brian.
Brian, look out!
While Brian was dead, the family didn't really take much time to mourn him and got straight on the hunt for another dog, someone I've already shown you, Vinnie.
So, Quagmire, how come I never see you wearing a necklace? I'll get you one.
That's not really my thing. Please don't.
Now this is where things get a little twisted, because the big mystery behind Brian's death is, who was the person who did the hit and run? Who was at the wheel? We never actually find out, but some fans have suggested that the person responsible is none other than Vinnie. Canonically speaking, though, Vinnie wouldn't have known about the Griffins until they came to a specific pet store, but what if that wasn't the case? Well, we know Vinnie is well connected. He used to be in a gang and has regular run-ins with the mob.
What the hell? That was supposed to go to somebody else. I'm very sorry.
Oh no! They killed Frankie Choo Choo Chinelli instead!
So, what if he got his guys to scope out most of Quahog for another family who have been used to a talking dog? Then just like that, he's got a new home. He could have just slipped the pet store owner a couple $100 to let him pose as one of the dogs, and maybe even had the other stores closed down for the day. Maybe he wanted to take Brian's place. I mean, you can't say he didn't. They even changed him in the show's intro.
Fashion values on which we used to raise a family guy.
It's probably a little convoluted, but you can't say it's not creative, especially as Vinnie's voice actor was the late great Tony Sirico, famous for playing Tony in The Sopranos. The biggest thing that goes against this theory is that Vinnie played a big part in bringing Brian back. He helped Stewie get his pad and even agreed to rewrite history, meaning he'd be stuck in the pet shop, still without a family.
I'm man's best friend, not some stupid baby's best friend, right?
Good dog, Vinnie.
Not exactly the behavior of someone who's guilty, but who knows, maybe Vinnie did run Brian over, but after seeing how much Stewie missed him, he decided to use time travel as a get-out-of-jail-free card. The only thing I'll say with any conviction is, I wish they'd give Vinnie another role. He was such a cool character. But at last, now we're at the darkest and strangest place in this iceberg's ocean, the Abyss. All throughout this iceberg, I've talked to you guys through different reasons as to why Brian might have his human qualities, from Peter stealing his body to the off chance he carries a special gene. Well, there's one more theory about that I want to cover that relates to how Brian got his humanity, and to do that, we gotta take another look at Brian's childhood again. In Road to Rhode Island, we see Brian as a pup surrounded by his mom and his brothers and sisters as he's about to tuck into some lunch.
Hey, whoa! Mom, help! Mom!
Obviously, being a part of the puppy mill means you're at risk of being snatched away from your mom at any time to be sold or put to work. But that farmer might be more to Brian than the guy who sold him, because according to this theory, he's Brian's dad. There's no real evidence for this theory apart from the fact that Brian was the only puppy that could talk on the farm, which we found out when Brian went back there.
Son, lots of dogs been born here. Refresh my memory.
I was the one who could talk.
Brian, come on in. Daddy, look who it is.
Is that Brian?
The reason Brian went back to the farm was to try and patch things up with his mom, who he hadn't seen since the day he got taken away. But he found out that she's sadly passed and been turned into an ornament.
Hey, Well, I say, someone must have said a funny because your mother's in stitches.
Well, Luke's stuffing biscuit is the whole reason we're having this discussion. Seriously though, this is another one that sounds really interesting in theory, but there's not a lot of substance to back it up. Plus, Brian's real dad is an actual dog called Coco who got run over by a milk truck. We never see him, but wherever he is, let's hope he's in better pastures. Just so you guys know, that was a super complicated milk pun. Brian's not really had a lot to smile about in his short life so far. Don't get me wrong, without Peter and the gang, he'd be in a world of trouble, but he's had a whole lot go wrong for him. Like we just spoke about, both his parents are dead. He's a middle-aged bachelor who's never had a successful relationship.
Hey, might I Pinterest you in a drink .0?
Which isn't hard to see why. He's an incredibly poor writer, as we saw earlier. In fact, anything he's got passion for, he sucks at. Even when he thinks he's being funny, the world fails to see the funny side. Even when he tries to apologize for a joke in bad taste, they still find a way to kick the dog while he's down.
Hello. As you all know, I'm Brian Griffin.
Boo, Brian Griffin, boo.
You get where I'm going with this. Brian's a pretty sad figure. Well, probably the darkest theory that surrounds him is the idea that he's secretly suicidal. That all this is too much for him, but he's either too cowardly to cut the cord himself, or he doesn't want to hurt his family. There are a few signs that point to this maybe being true though, however warped it is. Like instead of doing something rash and hurting himself immediately, you could argue that Brian is drinking himself into an early grave.
Yeah, sorry for a second.
No, not on the seats! The cup!
It's almost like self-abuse in some way. With every drink that he downs, he creeps an inch closer to death. Same sort of stuff when he gets hooked on the devil's dandruff too.
I'm never doing drugs now.
Got milk?
There's an even sadder part of this theory that Brian's trying to find more creative ways to end his own life without making his family think he's suicidal. An example being the time when he volunteered to give his kidneys up for Peter, knowing that it'd kill him.
What? I'll give you my kidneys.
But you'll die.
Peter, you gave me a home when I didn't have one, and you've treated me like a family member ever since.
Brian, you're saving my life.
Well, you saved mine. We had a lot of good years together, right?
Luckily, Dr. Hartman was a match, so Brian didn't have to die, but if this theory is true, that only prolonged his pain. We also know, thanks to the episode Brian and Stewie, that Brian thinks about suicide often. He even keeps a gun in case the dreaded day comes and he's finally had enough.
It's all too much. Life, having the gun here, knowing there's a way out, it helps.
He goes on to explain why he's feeling this way.
I don't live with purpose. You were right. What purpose does my life have? Oh, it's true, Stewie. I mean, dogs are supposed to be able to live with purpose, not even to have to think about it. Just, I've tried to find meaning in my life, and I just can't.
So there you have it, straight from the dog's mouth. Not much of a theory anymore, I guess. Stewie does tell him that it's a selfish state of mind, and I think that knocks Brian back to reality. He's got a friend there that actually cares about him. As for the theory, I think sadly it's probably more true than it isn't. I mean, as I just said, is it really a theory? Brian looks and sounds like a suffering soul, the quintessential tortured artist. He wasn't perfect back in the day, but he's a far cry from that now. I guess it's just sad that the darkest theory on his iceberg probably has the most truth in it. And with that, we come to the end of Brian's iceberg. But don't you worry, there's a load of other icebergs for me to cover out there. In the meantime, though, if you're still itching for some more animated action, why not give the video on screen a click right about now, and I'll see you on over there. Thanks for watching.